India has revised its guideline regarding testing of recovered COVID-19 patients about a week ago. As per the new guidelines, mild, very mild, moderate patients and pre-symptomatic patients who are admitted in the hospital have to be discharged by the 10 days of onset of symptoms and 3 days of no fever. The guidelines also advise the patients to be home quarantined for 7 days. And the guidelines say that there is no need of testing them anymore. India's current position is entirely different from its earlier position, where it mandated 2 negative tests for each patient to be declared as recovered or cured. How does this impact the overall well-being of the patients? To discuss this issue, we have today with us Dr. Shivkumar Utre. He is the president of Maharashtra Medical Council. And also we have Dr. Om Srivastava. He is infectious disease expert associated with Jaslok, Reliance and Kasturba Hospitals in Mumbai. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Dr. Om Srivastava, I suppose that the earlier guidelines were based on scientific evidence. Now it is at the discretion of the clinician to declare someone as recovered. So don't you think that it is a risky position? I'm asking this question because we have read about a case in Ahmedabad just 2 days ago. The patient was admitted in the hospital on 10th of May. He was discharged on 15th May, and a vehicle, took him and transported him to somewhere where he was found dead. I mean, he could not even reach to his home. So now his family alleges negligence. The government, Gujarat government, has ordered a probe. So this case raises a lot of questions. Yes, Dr. Srivastava.
Okay. Well, I don't think you should come to a conclusion until the cause of death is known, with scientific evidence. Simply because there was a person who had COVID who succumbed does not mean that he succumbed to COVID. Now, when you say that the guidelines are changing, this is also based on evidence. This is not only a clinician's judgment. This is also based on evidence that there is very little evidence that after the 7th day, if a patient does not have fevers or does not have a cough or does not have any systemic symptoms, there is very little evidence to say that this person is still going to be shedding the virus. So 7th to 10th day after the last symptom is sufficient evidence for you to be saying that yes, such a patient can be sent home. This is different to what was supposed to be the evidence earlier, that 14 days is meant to be required. But this is again at this time, with as Dr. Utre was mentioning a little while ago, we are also learning. We're also learning every day, and that this is on best evidence right now. Pardon me. I think that this person that you're talking about in Ahmedabad, we probably need to know as to why this person succumbed before we can say that he or she succumbed due to COVID or something else.
Dr. Utre, a patient stops shedding virus after 10 days? Is this for sure?
Yes, see, there have been studies done not only in India but outside also, and even for that matter, ICMR is also doing these studies, and they have found out that, as Dr. Om has just now said, that after 7 days, if he is asymptomatic, that is the most important thing, that he has to be asymptomatic. The shedding definitely sometimes has come down to almost zero. See, why do we put these patients in isolation? We are not putting this patient in an ICU. Remember, when you put a patient or positive patient in an ICU, you are putting it for the treatment of that patient. But when you are putting a patient in isolation, where the symptoms are not very bad or not known at all, he is asymptomatic. It is basically so that he does not spread the disease. So you have to make a distinction in this criteria, in these two aspects. So are we putting that patient in the hospital or isolation so that he does not spread, or for his treatment because he is symptom? I don't know what this Ahmedabad case that you have said is there, but then one case does not, you don't expect us to change our whole protocol just on the evidence of one case. So maybe he has had some other comorbid conditions because of which he has expired. So we will have to look into the cause of why he has expired. And you cannot dub it. So see, obviously,
Dr. Uttara, I just want to interrupt here because the patient was discharged by the hospital for home quarantine. So we suppose that the doctors, they judge that the patient can be discharged. And when the person dies within maybe hour, so the questions will be raised. If there were, comorbid conditions, I think the doctors would not have discharged him in the first place.
yeah, that's the reason I'm saying we should know what is the cause of that death. Because the way it has been described doesn't look like he has died because of COVID problem. And as we are seeing that whenever we send them home also, there is a particular protocol to be followed. So if the patient has got enough facilities at his house for isolation, not only that, it has been, in black and white, it has been written that there should be a 24/7, there should be a person to look after that patient at home also. So if, or he should have a separate room, a separate, toilet, everything should be separate. If that is the case, definitely there is no problem in sending these patients home as per what data up till now everybody has collected from all over the world.
Dr. Srivastava, do you think that the revised guidelines mainly aim to, reduce the burden on healthcare professionals, number one, and also to preserve the testing kits, which might be, we might be running out of the shortage of them?
So two separate questions that you're asking. The revised guidelines, well, look, I think that guidelines or not, the healthcare professional is probably the one resource that you must try and ensure is going to last the distance. Okay, the last thing that you want is that you have been trying to do so much out of whatever, whether it's good intention or pooling of resources. You don't want to be in a situation where your frontline worker is completely exhausted. And it's different when I say, as a doctor, we are probably there for a little bit of time, but the people who are the nurses, the residents, those people who are actually looking after the patient at the bedside for 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, they are the ones that you need to ensure are getting enough rest, rehydration, enough time between two shifts of work. And in the time that they are working, they have enough resources to use so that the best care can be provided to the patients that they are seeing. So I think that looking after that frontline worker is critical, because COVID is not about to go anywhere. There might be figures that might be, they may wax and wane, but it's not likely to, disappear in the next 1 month's time at least. So we will need to be ensuring that frontline worker needs to be looked after, and that there is a plan B and a plan C and a plan D in these matters. That was the first question you asked. The second question you're asking is the testing kits. I think it's a matter of finding out what is it that you hope to achieve by doing the testing. Are you trying to find out whether there are enough people who have been infected and are therefore having the antibodies in their system? Is that what you want to achieve? Or you're trying to find out that there are enough people who are asymptomatic carriers, or simply people who are going to go through a state where they are no longer going to be infective to anybody in the community. So precisely what is it that you're trying to achieve is important. Once you've decided that, then you need to look at which are the most vulnerable populations in your community, what is the number of that population, and what is the bench strength of your laboratory. So say you are going to need say 10,000 tests in a day's time. In that part of the community, do you have enough laboratory support? Because each test is going to take a little bit of time to, it's a turnaround time. It's an RT-PCR. It's a machine. There is also what is the process of an RNA extraction. Sometimes it can be done manually. Sometimes it requires a machine. So all of this is dependent upon how much of the manpower is available to you. If manpower is not available, then can it be done through an automated machine? So there are multiple logistics to deciding. Basically, you'll need to come down to simply one thing, like I keep asking, exactly what is it that you want to achieve. Once you're clear about that, the rest of it can be planned accordingly.
Dr. Srivastav, European countries and United States, they are still, I mean, they are testing people twice before declaring them as cured or recovered. And if India has suddenly stopped it, so obviously, I mean, the questions are being raised, why we have done so. Earlier we were doing the same thing, but now we have stopped.
There is no added advantage. There's no advantage. You might say, why not test it 3 times? Then maybe we should stop testing at 4 times or maybe 5 times. The point is that you need one solid piece of evidence where you can say that this person is no longer shedding the virus and this person is not going to be posing any risk to anybody in the community. Once you have established that, after that, if a patient becomes symptomatic, the guidelines are clear about that as well. Once you have been discharged or you have been sent into a community center, after that, if you become symptomatic, then you should be retested. Yes, yes. And that is justified because there may be people who will go through various phases of shedding the virus. But if that is not the case, a single test which is negative is sufficient.
Dr. Uttare, do you think that we have that kind of infrastructure or system wherein healthcare professional can monitor that the patient who has been discharged, as a recovered or cured, is actually following the guidelines of home quarantine? I'm asking this question mainly because the cities like Mumbai, there are a lot of, I think half of the population lives in very small apartments, maybe 1 room or 2 room. Then how can we ensure that people is, actually able to follow the home quarantine guidelines?
See, that's what I just now also I told you. There are particular protocols to be followed whenever you let a patient go home on quarantine or on isolation. And he's supposed to give a declaration also. The patient is supposed to give a declaration that all these facilities, as per whatever the protocols are there, are present for him when he goes home. As I said, there should be separate rooms, separate toilet. There should be 24/7 someone to look after him. Because if he goes into symptoms, again, he has to be looked after. Not only that, but there are health workers who may not be doctors, but the other paramedical staff who give him a call on a regular basis to find out exactly what his condition is. So having said all that, what we have to understand is that there is something, a medical aspect and a practical aspect to how we treat these patients. Practically we would definitely like to not only 14 days, but for 28 days put everybody inside, and then so that it absolutely stops spreading and even we don't have any mortality or morbidities. But is it practically possible to do that? See, you have to understand day by day the cases are going on increasing. Exponential increases are there. And if you see the experiences even in Italy, there was a time when the health workers or the doctors were in a dilemma, which patient to put on ventilator and which patient should not put. That was morally and legally, they were in such a big soup at that time because the number of ventilators were less. The patients requiring the ventilators were high. And then the government also took the decision that after a particular age, you please do not put them on a ventilator because you want to save someone else. Now, this is something that you have to understand. It is very, very difficult for us health workers to decide whom to let live and whom to let die. It should not have been in their hand, but you have to see the practical aspects. Do we have the infrastructure? Do we have that much of testing facilities? As Dr. Om just now told you that it's not a question of just picking up the swab. It's a question of getting the test done, which takes a lot of time. So we have to decide, we have to be very prudent in deciding whom to test, whom not to test, how many times to test that person. And this, as said, that statistics has shown that after 7 days, you do not shed the virus to someone else. And therefore, if you're without symptoms, you don't require, or viral diseases do not require admissions if you don't have the symptoms. Even pneumonias, if you don't have the symptoms, we send them home after 3-4 days of treatment. That does not mean that he has been completely cured, but he does not require institutional admission. That is all that it says. So I think, when such decisions are taken, there is always a discussion. and it is taken after taking all symptoms, signs, everything into consideration, and then the protocol is set.
There are concerns regarding, possible discrimination also, because the guidelines say there is no need of testing, negative. But there is no need. That means if the rich people, they might be tested and poor might not. That is what the concerns are being raised by some activists. So what do you have to say about this, Dr. Shivas?
I'm the wrong person to comment on something like that. I think that's a question that should be answered by, well, either a social activist or somebody who's a lawmaker. I don't think that any system is going to discriminate or would like to discriminate about resources being more towards one strata of society and one against a strata of society. These things may happen, but I don't think it is any projection or any set plan by which these things are done. I take the point you're making, but like I've said, I'm the wrong person to comment on something like this.
Dr. Uttray, your last comment, please.
Yeah, I'll answer that. I have been roaming about in all the possible hospitals, government hospitals, corporation hospitals, and of course, big corporate hospitals also. Let me tell you very frankly, what I'm seeing is a treatment given, especially in the government hospitals, is something fantastic. I have been working in government hospitals for a very, very long time, almost for 30-35 years. But what I am seeing, especially in this COVID problem, the treatment given is absolutely sometimes even at par or even above that what we see in the private setups. There could be some compromises in the private setup, but I don't think in the government setups there is going to be any compromise. So I don't think this discrimination is there, especially in COVID patients, because government and the corporation is spending a lot of money. There's no dearth of to what extent they can spend the money. So they are getting the best of treatments even in the government hospitals. And statistics have shown that the patients, even the bad patients who have been on ventilators, the percentage of them coming out in India off the ventilators in the government hospitals is pretty high, which as compared to anywhere in the world. So we are doing a good job under the circumstances that we are in today. The only thing is we hope that we can continue and the health workers are not overwhelmed with the number of cases and tired, and the fatigue does not set in. And we try to control this disease as early as possible. Therefore, the number of cases coming to us should be controlled first, so that we can give the best of treatment to every individual patient.
Dr. Shiva, so your concluding remarks.
Yeah, I think that it is all the information that is coming your way, our way, should be tempered with where we are as compared to our own situation, as compared to other countries that have been at this stage at this time. I don't think that we should be overwhelmed by numbers alone. If we are able to keep the total number of people requiring the most critical part, that means people who are going to require an intensive care admission or ventilatory support, if we are able to keep those numbers to as low as possible for as long as possible, we've done a good job. As Dr. Uttray was rightly saying, the public health system in a country like ours, in a state like Maharashtra, it is doing a fantastic job. For all the enormous pressures that they are facing, they're doing a terrific job. I think we need to look at how best this system can be supported, how to ensure that this is not a 100-meter run, it's a 50-kilometer, kind of long distance marathon, and that you should prepare accordingly, not to get overwhelmed by a certain statistic or a number, and to take every number that comes your way in the right perspective.
Thank you for talking with us, doctors. Thank you.
Thank you.